Oh. Yeah, if anybody has ever seen Rally Security, you know the dumpster fire you just walked into. Um, I am actually cool with this being like an interactive talk too. So if somebody has, and I realize the risk that's my level of risk acceptance. You monkeys up front. Um, if anybody does have like a cool little story that they want to tell or whatever, like I'm welcome to it. I don't mind this being interactive. Um, so yeah, welcome. This is my first time at GrrCon. Who else is first time at GrrCon here? Yes, I like that. Who's relatively new to InfoSec as the industry? Put your fucking hand down. Cool. So I think my reason for writing this, and all this is going to really be off the cuff, because this is all my personal stories, which I've told to my friends 8 billion times, and I figured I should just have it recorded so I can shut up and just say, here's the link, and here's my life story. Um, yeah, I am lazy, because I don't want to talk to people. So, that's me. My name's Danny. You can find me on Twitter at most of those locations. The Akacki, a couple other projects that I do. So, first off, I'm a senior technical account manager at Iceberg/Gigamon. I just started there. And they were nice enough to send me here, so I figured I would just pimp them a little bit with a little bling on my wrist. Um, I run a project called InfoSanity, which actually helped spawn me wanting to write about what I've gone through so far in this industry. It's a project that I put together to help people who are dealing with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, addiction, all that kind of stuff. So I did talk on that at Circle City, so you guys can check that out. I also run my local DEF CON group, DEF CON 610, and whenever I feel the need to watch myself talk in writing, I write up on my blog at pcwf.co. That's my kid. That's Jackson. Hands down the best thing that I'm ever gonna make, ever. I might as well quit now because he's awesome. He's quite a bit older now, but I always like to put him right up front. So why this talk? Who loves a really good fail story, first of all? Yeah, okay. If you don't, then like you're really in the wrong talk. Um, so I've been in the industry proper for, I don't know, about 7 years now. And before that I did over a decade in just general purpose IT stuff, fixing printers, the stuff that there were 8 billion people lined up to do. Back when everybody had an MCSC and was going to make $800,000 a year, that's where I came up in. Until I realized like that shit wasn't happening anymore, or ever. So I decided to try my hand at security. And so it's been a relatively short period. Like I said, about 6 years. And a primer for the rest of the talk is in those 6 years, I have been laid off 3 times, fired once, and voluntarily left because of some company reorgs. My story is not, as far as I know, the norm. I like to think that I took these karmic hits for somebody else, so some other noob can just go unmolested, have fun, not have to get fired or look for other jobs or get laid off. So, I tend to keep falling forward though, so this is all my personal stories, and it's going to go right off the top of my head and tell it how it happened, and try to relate it not only to those of you just starting out, if you're students, if you're just new to the industry, you're starting a second career, or those of us that have been around for a while, management, C-levels. I don't know if we have any of those in the room, but some of these things, most of these things were not handled well, but through it all, I like to think I ended up in a pretty good spot. I have a really great network of friends. You said I saw my other slide, doing a lot of different projects to kind of stave off things like burnout, things like imposter syndrome, that I know a lot of the people who come to the InfoSanity site don't really want to talk about themselves. So hopefully, me not being afraid to talk about it because like I just don't care, will help them. So. How am I going to do this? I'm going to tell you a bunch of stories. I'm going to tell you where I started in the industry, how I got there, and actually even up until about a month ago, how it happened again. And then we're going to talk about kind of how to weather these storms, right? And we're going to get through this talk, much like I've gotten through my whole career, and that's together, right? I'm going to equate these stories to you. Hopefully some of it rings true with you. You've had your own. Maybe you've handled it well, maybe not so much. And maybe after this, if it ever happens to you again, if you get laid off, if something happens, some emergency happens, it doesn't take you quite as long to get back up. I separated my career to date in a few different stages, right? And separating them the only way I know how, by lyrics to Bad Religion songs. It really does work. Are there any Bad Religion fans in the audience? Yes. Okay, you can get a coin later. So this is how I started, man. I don't know. I might have a chair over here. I might not, because sometimes I like to get super casual. So I started out in information security. Here, let's do that. Oh, no, damn it. You did that last time. There we go. Your shipment has arrived. I don't have a lot of words on slides. This is just going to be me chatting with all y'all. So when I was making my transition, funny enough, my transition into IT security started by about to be laid off. I was doing IT for a small regional bank. And as most small banks are prone to do, anybody who's ever worked in finance, who's familiar with finance, they're just in it to sell themselves. They want to get sold to a larger bank. Unless you're a credit union, I mean, those things are pretty safe. But I didn't know this at the time. I thought I'd be safe forever. I was doing networking, router switch config. It was everything I ever wanted to do. And then they came down, hey, we're getting bought. And I heard for the first time something that would come up again. And this is one of those little trigger words that you guys should watch out for. Do what's best for your families. If you ever hear that, fucking run. That never ends well. If somebody tells you that, that means you should start shopping. So keep that one in your back pocket. So I ended up growing up with a bunch of hackers, right? A bunch of my really close friends were all hackers. And one of them, his name's Jamie, is at Wick on Twitter, and if you don't follow him, you really should. He said, have you ever thought about doing security? I was like, I don't know. I'd always want to be a hacker. I thought, but at that time, it was like, oh, is this right-click hack? Is that how that works? Like, I'll get paid for that. That's cool. So I started out at a small SOC for a government agency, and it was pretty awesome. Like, I had never seen a packet before. As soon as I sat down and kind of saw the width and breadth of everything, I was absolutely terrified. Anybody who saw the opening screenshot from Noid on Twitter of everything is scary and I'm going to fail, I know nothing. And eventually you kind of circle back around that a few times. But the one thing that I did, that I saw right away was I noticed some of the tools that we were using, and there was a particular tool called Redline from Mandiant. Everybody familiar with Mandiant? Yeah, right? And this was my first... this is kind of why I wanted to stay in this industry, because I had such a reaction to Kevin Mandia, right? Kevin was the first guy that I really knew that I felt, knowing nothing, by the way, my noob opinion, was that he really got it right. He had always said it's not about if, but when. It's not about, trying to detect everything. It's about preventing it. So I listened to every single thing that this guy ever wrote. Every single video that he ever had. Later on in my career, when I was working for him, I actually ran into him in an elevator. It was him and Travis Reese, and I was like, Kevin, oh my God, I fanboyed it the fuck out. I said, I've seen all your videos. And he was like, oh shit, which ones? And I said, I've seen all of them, Kevin. So I decided that Mandiant was the place I wanted to go. Like, I was going to work for them, come hell or high water. Knew absolutely nothing. I had absolutely no reason to apply. Here's your first lesson. Don't let job requirements scare you. Right? If you're new, or if you're trying to get up through the industry, I have a whole slide on recruiters later. I think you're going to like it. But don't let those requirements scare you. If you want to go somewhere, if you want to learn something, if you want to put yourself out there, do that shit. Don't let it stop you. So I didn't. Not because I believed that then. I was just stupid enough to think I could do it. And I got through their recruiting. I talked to them. They seemed like nice people. I had no idea the level of company I was about to go into. And I got an interview with the manager for the position. Holy shit. It lasted 12 minutes. Anybody ever have an interview where you just wanted to die the second you got in? Right? Like, right. I am completely over my head. Why am I here? The worst. The worst is when you get an interviewer who knows you're over your head, but won't let you go. And they just bat you around like some kind of psychotic cat, right? No, fucker, you thought you were good enough for this, right? What about this thing? No, I don't know. Stop hitting me. Mandiant's like that. This whole story about Mandy is exactly like that. So I got on the phone, and her name is Jen Ayers. I'm going to preface that by saying was my first mentor in this industry, who really gave a shit about what happened to me later on. And she really set the tone for my entire career, the rest of my career, until the day I'm in the ground, of how to approach building a team, how to approach cultivating talent. She is amazing. She works at CrowdStrike right now. So if you ever apply at CrowdStrike, just say, I want to work for Jen Ayers. I want like 70 applications. I want her to call me going, what the fuck did you say? She could be a cult leader, man. She's awesome. So anyway, I was working at Foot Locker corporate and just doing some telecom work. And I remember I was sitting down. They had this subterranean parking garage, like very like X-Files-ish. And I was sitting there, and a phone call started, and we introduced ourselves to the pleasantries. That took about 10 minutes. Then we got on the technical portion of it. She asked me, so what's DNS? Oh. No fucking idea. I was like, DNS is this thing that does names on the internet. And she's like, all right, bye. That was it. Literally 12 minutes. The interview was noon, and it went until 12:12. And I sat there, and she's not one to be cuddly either. So she was very abrupt, going, yeah, I got a thing, bye. So I sat there, and I know a lot of you can commiserate with this feeling of, I fucked that up. That's the kind of thing you're going to be thinking about 20 years from now, right? Life is good, you're on your deathbed, you have grandkids, you lived a great life, and the only thing you think about is that one interview you monumentally screwed up, and those are your last words going, no, I know what DNS is. That's the legacy that I wanted to leave. So 12 minutes. And instinctively, this has been something that's really served me well during my entire career, and I really encourage all of you to do this too. Fuck all that. 12 minutes wasn't good enough. So I emailed her right after we got off the phone, which normally seems a little clingy, maybe like seems a little forward, but I was like, no, fuck that. I'm going to work for Kevin. I want to work for Kevin Mandia, and I don't care what it takes. So I emailed her, and I was like, oof, I really screwed that one up. Word for word. I still have the email saved somewhere. And I said, listen, I'm sorry to waste your time, but I'm going to work for you. I'm going to work for you, regardless. So what did I do wrong, right? What didn't I know? Well, it's easy. You asked me one question about DNS. Clearly, start with DNS, asshole. So what did I do wrong? How can I improve? And my ego hurting the whole time. Not as much as it would today, because my ego was not nearly as big as it is today. My friends can attest to that. So she took me up on it. There's no other manager that I've really had that would have done that to somebody they did not know. So here's a part for the managers in the audience, for people aspiring to be in a position of power like that. She took that email, and she took me at my word. She was like, all right, let's dance. Let's see how much I can beat you up over the next 6 months or a year. And she responded right away. She was like, well, you screwed up the first question, so here's the list of other things I was going to ask you. She shared with me all the things that she wanted to test me on. And this wasn't that long ago, and it's a little bit, I think, less so now, of when you have to be a generalist in this industry. Like, you had to know everything from network to host to IDS to reverse engineering. Like, just for somebody brand new, that seems so daunting to me. At first, I was like, oh, it's just a list of things. I can tick this off, until I actually started reading about the shit. And I was like, all right, well, this is going to be exponentially harder. So I said, all right, cool. I'm going to take you up on this. She goes, all right, study this stuff. Work your ass off for this. And I'll check in with you. I was like, well, I'll do you one better. I said, I'm going to start a OneNote notebook. And this started my love affair with OneNote. If you don't use OneNote, yeah, exactly. A whistle and a head nod. That's about as much excitement as I can get for a piece of software. But yeah, so OneNote is awesome. And I started a tab and a book for every single thing that she told me to study. Even if that was not going to be the gig. And it wasn't. Like reverse engineering had nothing to do with it. But I wanted to know about it, right? I wanted to know a little bit about everything. And you can share OneNote notebooks with people. So I shared it with her like she should give a shit. And I said, if you see me heading, like, and this was a little, I don't know, pie in the sky, but it ended up working, so this is why I'm telling this story. I shared it with her, and I said, if you see me heading down a wrong path, if you see me going too deep in one place, not deep enough, just ignoring some things, like, let me know, like, just put a note in there that I can see. And she did that. She would, and then every so often, like, we'd have a phone call or an email. She asked me how it was going. And just saying that now and thinking about that, she had no real investment in me. She had no reason to spend her time, even 5 minutes of her time, checking in on somebody who completely screwed up an interview 2, 3, 4 months prior. Fast forward 6 months, probably a little bit less. I remember I was shopping. I was like at some farmer's market because that's what I do. And I get a phone call from her. It's a California number, so I answer and it's Jen, and I was like, "Oh, cool. What's up? You're calling me on a weekend. I'm not really used to that." She was like, "Hey, are you ready yet? Do you have the guts to come talk to us again?" No, no, I really don't. But of course I said, "Yeah, I'll come." And she was like, "Cool. We have something opened up. I want you to interview again." That's amazing. Like from that mega fail in the beginning to getting invited back to interview. So I go again, round 2. First one was on the phone. This one was in person. It's one thing to get beat up when nobody can see you. Like, that's fine. Like, you could grimace all you want. You could be like Dave Kennedy and not wear pants at all. Like, YOLO, whatever you guys want to do. But I had to go in person. So I went down to their office in Alexandria. And I sat there in front of Jen. I forget the one dude's name. He did like the network side. And there was a woman named Shannon Battaglia who worked at Mandiant. And she did the host side. And I had no idea what to expect. So I thought I muscled up and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." And I was like banging stuff out. Network side. And then I get to Shannon. And Shannon's very sweet. Shannon's very calm and very welcoming. And then she just beats the shit out of me for 45 minutes. I didn't know how much I did not know about endpoint and host and just like, hey, what's, NTDS that did or whatever. I had no idea. So I just got beat up just continuously. And I left there thinking mistakenly, I've done pretty good. I think I'll get this gig. 3 weeks later, like after some phone calls, they're like, "Oh, no, you didn't get that. Are you crazy? You think you could get that?" So that was 2, right? Knocked down twice from going there. I emailed them again. I was like, "I'm not done yet." So here's the other thing too. If you screw up these interviews or just anything and you feel defeated, like the only person that really defeats you is you thinking you absolutely cannot do it. Right? Like don't give up on it. I just kept hammering at these people. So let's go for round 3. Because why not? I finally get a gig. A good one too. It was a 3rd shift SOC gig at a security operations center in Philly. And I'd have to drive 2 hours to go do it and 2 hours back, 3rd shift on a train. But it was a really good team. Like I liked it a lot. I'm walking down Broad Street one night trying not to get stabbed. And just to get some lunch, dinner, whatever time it was, Jen calls me again. I was like, "Fuck, what do you want now?" And she was like, "Come interview. We have the perfect spot for you." I was like, whoa. I'm not falling for that again. She goes, "Yeah, you are. You're going to come talk to us." And I was like, "Jen, I love this team. They're really good." She was like, "Do you want to work for them or for Kevin?" And I was like, "All right, well, fair point." Let's dance again. So we scheduled the interview for a couple weeks later. Or not even. So at the time, my wife and I had just gotten engaged. And we were planning our wedding. We were going to fly out to Vegas, do a whole thing. So it's going to be remote, right? She's like, "Yes, 100% remote. Don't worry about it. Just get on the call." Got me really stoked for it. I'm like already planning my exit from SunGuard and all this stuff. And I get on the phone, and I'm talking to, his name is Justin Harvey. I think he's at FusionX now. Justin's a very nice dude. He was like, "Yeah, that job's not remote anymore." Yeah, right? Ooh is right. So, like, "Do you want to still talk to us?" And Jen was the other person on the phone. She goes, "Talk to him. Just do it like, she was also texting me on the side. She was like, do this interview like you're going to get it. Because there's no possible way I could have moved. It's not remote anymore, and it's all the way at Redwood City. Like, they're never going to pay me enough for that. I was like, fine. So, again, another piece of advice. I keep calling these lessons, but that feels kind of like hoity-toity to me, like I'm a fucking teacher or something. I'm not. It's more advice than anything else. Even in the face of that, like, well, I can't move. I'm not going to get this gig. Do the thing anyway. Do it to the absolute best that you have, right? Even if you're in talking to somebody, doing an interview, whatever, and they're asking you a question you absolutely don't know, think that shit out and verbalize it. They just want to hear your thought processes. But I said, okay, I'll do this. And we talked for about an hour, and I hung up, and I was like, wow, that would have went really well if there was any chance of me getting this gig at all. So, third fail. Jen calls me 25 minutes later. Just kidding, you got the job. You can be remote. I'm like, fuck, don't do that. She's awful. She's an awful, awful person, but I love her to death. So I did that, and I got in. Let me see my time. Fuck, I'm talking a lot. That's cool. So the second half of this, after these stories, you guys are like this. So it's going to be all the shitty things that we don't tell you about the industry. Hence, like this stuff. So that was awesome. I got to work at Mandiant. A bunch of amazing people. I'll sing their praises forever, despite the story I'm about to tell about them for round 2. So FireEye acquires them, do a little bit of reorganization. 8 months later, I get a phone call. Said, hey, Danny, can you hop on a team call? It's like 8:19 in the morning. And I was like, oh, this is normal. This is fine. So I get on the call, and little pro tip for when you see this, if you get an unexpected phone call and there's a third party on the WebEx that you don't really realize, it's going to be HR. It's always HR. Get on the phone, HR. Danny, we're really sorry. You've been awesome. Get the fuck out. So I got riffed. Anybody know what the term riff means? Yeah, reduction in force, reduce in force. It's a nicer way of saying you're fired. This doesn't have anything to do with your performance. It's just reorganization, whatever. And that was a huge blow, man. Because I told you the whole story about the first trying to get in there. Imagine what it feels like then to be knocked on your ass and say unceremoniously, sorry, somebody with a spreadsheet and a red pen said you make too much money or your position's redundant. That sucks. And that will send you, I don't care who you are, if you have that much personal investment in a company, that will send you so far down it's not even funny. It went into a big depression, which I'm not scared to talk about. I want to talk about it in case anybody else can't. So that sucked. But, it is what it is. Luckily, I started building a little bit of a network. There's a big GE contingent at Mandiant. I ended up working at GE down in down New Orleans. They moved my wife and I down there. It was awesome. Cool. Falling forward. It's kind of the theme of this whole thing. Got a job in at their applied threat analytics position, and they were great. They were a great team. We moved down 2,000 miles away from anybody that we knew, right? And I tell this story again because a lot of us have to relocate for jobs, right? It's not all remote, can't be remote all the time. So we went down there, and I get there, 6 months later, 8 months later. Surprise, my wife is pregnant with our first kid. That cute little bastard you saw up on the screen. And on her birthday, she's getting a massage. I'm in the car. I'm in a drive to a coffee shop, just hanging out. Get a phone call. Hey, Danny, we're having a team call. Can you get on it? Fuck. Okay, so we get on the call. Turns out, I worked for GE Capital. They were divesting most of their business vertical, which means consolidating, reorg. For the second time in my career, I heard, do what's best for your families. I've heard this before, so let's do this. Ended up having to move home because I'm not sticking around. They said you can't have their job guaranteed. So felt like another failure, right? Just felt like one more thing. But through this whole thing, and I want to really underscore this because it's important. It's not about your resume, and it's not about the companies you've worked for. It's not the prestigious titles. It's the people you work with. It's the good management that you have. It's the awesome team members that you work really closely with. That is what's going to follow you in this industry. that and we're a small ecosystem. Everybody knows each other. Every gig I've ever had to jump to in these just the past 6 or 7 years, somebody has said, "Oh, I talked to so and so from X, Y, and Z. They've talked to you," and a lot of times that's what gets you the gig. Like that, you just weren't an asshole at your last place. So, right, like I've had at least one gig where like, no, we just wanted to know if you were a dick or not. And I said, oh, but I know stuff. Yeah, no, we can teach you all that. Like we can't really teach you how not to be an asshole. You could try, but I mean, I've tried to teach my cat that, and she's not listening. So ended up leaving GE, and then going to a couple more gigs until I found my current. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit of this. There's also there's a couple stories in between this, but I'm going to save that for the second half, which we're going to get to in a second. So where did I learn from all this? What am I trying to impart from the first half of this talk? Pretty much exactly what I just told you. Our community is absolutely everything. There are people that will say, especially in the whole hacker space and the hacker community, which has had the InfoSec industry built up around it. The hackers were here first, right? We were here first. And then now there's an industry, multi-billions of dollars, and endpoints, and blockchains, and AI. Just trying to figure out how many times I can fit blockchain into this talk. Blockchain, Trevor. Community is absolutely everything. And that's what's going to get you through. Those relationships with the people. Not because some drone at HR is going to have to say, oh yes, he worked here, and that's all they can say about you. That's not what matters. So, one cool story about the community thing that happened relatively recently is I found myself again in a position of getting my position eliminated. Shit just keeps seeming to happen. And anybody know Rob Fuller, Mubix? Right? What's up, man? Of course, my closest friends just kind of strolling halfway through, like, oh, fuck this guy. Mubix, right? Metasploit. 8 billion other things, like one of the brightest minds that we have. Early in my career, I would have been horrified to talk to him, right? Like, oh shit, it's Rob. I can't talk to Rob. Not only can you talk to Rob, I message him because he said he's also very big about doing community things for our own mental health and shit like that. And he offered to review my resume for me. Like, holy shit, like Rob's gonna look at my resume. No. He didn't just look at my resume. He got on a WebEx with me and sat on the phone for an hour going over my resume with me. Holy shit. Like, so he's one of the biggest names in the industry, and I was just so humbled by that. And he genuinely cared. I don't know if he'll be embarrassed by that story or whatever, or like, but I wanted it to be out there because he's an amazing guy. So I wanted to underscore the community is everything. And one of the other things, I love this. Familiar with OSCP, OffSec in here? This just doesn't go for offensive stuff, right? This doesn't go for red teaming. This goes to everything that you try and attempt in this world, in this life of InfoSec. Just, stuff is gonna beat you. Like, I admitted to my friend the other day, like the whole cryptography thing, I suck at math. It's the banes of my existence, but I'm gonna keep trying to try harder at learning it. And that has literally made the entire difference of falling down and falling forward. Take your beatings. Those beatings are going to make you stronger. I always kind of equate it to, so I in my other talks, I talk a lot about depression and anxiety and ways to cope with those things, right? Those little building blocks, those little coping mechanisms around this industry. It's kind of like getting your back pushed up against the wall. Either you can have a really low wall and you're going to fall, right? Whoever pushes you, whatever kind of adversity you have, you're going to fall straight over it. But if you build that shit up high enough, it's going to hold you up. Your back might be against the wall, but you're in a really great position at that point. And that's what you get from trying harder. So the other biggest lesson, and this is kind of where we get into the not so nice things that I want to relay to you to maybe make it a little bit stronger for you is that everything has a cost. We're in a very technically intensive field. We have to know a lot about a lot of things. It's not just you have to know a little bit about a lot. You have to go pretty in depth. And if you're a defender trying to keep the bad guys out, trying to catch the red team, those filthy red teamers. Yeah, you. He's one of the filthy red teamers. Got to use my laser pointer. It drains on you, right? It can destroy your brain if you don't, and it'll sneak up on you too. So let's get into stage 2. Feeling like you're absolutely not in control of this. Like everything is weighing down on you. You have people that are making decisions on your behalf that have nothing to do with your performance, right? How do you deal with that? Like that sucks. To think you can work your ass off, be the most talented person in this industry, and yet if you make too much money or there's a reorganization or just, I don't know, it was raining that day and they decide to let you go. It's happened to me enough where I want to relay some of those coping mechanisms. This is the stuff that we don't usually talk about in polite company, right? There's 1,000 blogs out there about how to break into information security, like what to expect, what you need to learn. I spent the whole first half of this talk talking about that. But what are the shitty things that maybe we're not really allowed to talk about because it's the whole burning bridges thing or whatever, and the people just don't really touch on it. So let's talk about it a little bit now, because I can talk about it because whatever. I've already been through it all. Like I'm not super scared of it anymore, which is a good and a bad thing. Everybody familiar with burnout? But yeah, right? That's like a weird thing to cheer too. Like, if you're here, burnout, yeah! I love fucking hating life. That's awesome. Yeah, burnout will sneak up on you, man. Burnout is real. And I think sneak up on you really is that is the actual, that's the phrase that I want to leave you with. One of the guys that really does a lot of work on this is Jack Daniel, father of B-sides. Like Jack is amazing. But like, the thing is, it doesn't just happen suddenly. So next natural question is, so what are the signs of burnout, Danny? What should we look for? There's a lot of them. It's the medical term for it. There's a shit ton of signs of burnout. But they all happen individually sometimes, and you might not really recognize it. And maybe you're even burned out right now and don't even realize it until maybe the only wall of text I'm going to show you right now is for the signs of burnout. Any of these apply to you, right? This one is almost the worst. And it's because we're hackers, man. That's what we do. That's who we are, right? Like, that's how I define myself. I want to take something that does one thing and make it do something completely different, right? Like, I want to turn Ryan's home phone into a sex line. Like, that's what I want to do. Who am I kidding? It's already a sex line. I'd call it. But cynicism and detachment, if you define yourself by something and that curiosity and things you take pride in, and then all of a sudden you wrap up a salary around it, you wrap up other people judging you around your performance around it, doing things, and listen, they're all jobs, right? Where they're companies, they have a bottom line, you have to do certain things. But when you wrap up a sense of self in a corporate policy, that's just a recipe for disaster, man. So that not loving the things that you would do even in your off time, that sucks. That is painful, man. And nobody wants to do poor performance. Like, we take pride in what we do. We take pride in making shit work the way it's not supposed to, or fixing stuff that is not working and it's supposed to work a certain way. So all of these, some of these, all of these, one of these, if you see these sneaking up on you, take a picture of this slide, right? And just be cognizant of it. So how do we get past it? How do we get past the burnout that we feel from having to go through all of these interviews and all of these rejections? And if you're in my shoes, all of these U-Haul moves. I swear to God, if my family had a family crest, in the middle would be a fucking U-Haul truck. So what do? Well, the one thing that I really opened my eyes when I talked to Jack about this, and Jack does a lot of talks. He does it better than I do. Like, look up everything he's ever done. When you're stressed, you actually have to take on more work. And I know that sounds stupid on its face, but it has to be work worth doing. Work that's meaningful to you, right? So maybe it doesn't have anything to do with your day gig. For me, I didn't start actually getting out of mine until I started doing things like InfoSanity, right? I am so depressed right now. I'm so anxious. It's ruining everything I have. Let's talk about it, right? I can't be the only one, so let me start to build something. So I built a website. I sent out some questions to some people. They sent me some answers about their experiences. I made a Slack room for it. By the way, find me on Twitter if you want to get into the Slack. It's absolutely free. Anybody can join. But that was work worth doing, right? Still a little not really technical, but still worth doing. And then I had my local meetup that I made, my DEF CON group, which has saved me from being depressed for weeks on end, more than I can count. We started out as a little local security meetup, and if anybody ever wants to do that and wants some pointers, by all means, again, reach out to me. We've been doing it for almost 3 years now. DEF CON 610, we turned into a DEF CON group earlier this year. And that's a lot of logistics, and it's making projects, and it's getting people to join, and it's cultivating different people coming in, students and professionals, but it's work worth doing. So I took on more work. I took on so much more work that wasn't really related to a job I didn't like anymore, and that really saved me from the burnout that job was making me feel. And it gave me a little bit more spark. You know what else really cures burnout? GrrCon, DEF CON, Circle City, any B-sides that you have near you. This is primarily the reason that I come here. It's not to talk. It's not just to say, hey, I've been to Michigan, or hey, I've been to Vegas, or whatever. It's to be around your own people, right? That will recharge you. I feel exponentially recharged every year when I go to DEF CON. Forget all the drama or whatever that you see on Twitter. Like, don't fucking worry about that. Concentrate on those people that you see during those. These talks are great. I'm thankful that you're all sitting here for my drivel. But if you have to forsake this talk for a really great conversation in a circle of people, hands down, any time of day, go do that. Go stay in that circle of people. That is what matters. You can watch this shit later. Yes. Yeah. We all have it, right? All right, that filthy red teamers don't have it, though.
You're all worthwhile. You're all awesome.
Oh, I thought that was going a different way. I thought you were going to be like, I'm the man, I don't need this shit. Oh, man, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome's a son of a bitch. And it's, so there's a clinical thing for it. It's not unique to us. It's not unique to information security. It's not unique to hackers. It's not unique to even like technical things. Like other industries have this. I recently kind of got over mine, except the half hour before this talk where it was like 100%. But mostly I'm kind of over it. And here's the way I do it. See, I'm tearing this bitch down. Imposter. I did it because of all of you, right? I don't know most of you in here. I didn't do it for you. No, of course I did it for you. I did it for all the friends I haven't even met yet, right? I do it for the friends who I've known for a very long time in this industry. Because if I think I can't do something, if I'm talking myself down, and maybe my explanation, I'm only saying this because maybe it rings true with somebody, and you can do your own, this doesn't have to be your explanation, is if they believe in me, these talented people that I look up to, that I fanboy out of, like the Paul Melsons of the world, the Jason Lynches of the world, Mike Reeves, a little bit. No, all amazingly smart people. I worked with those two before. If they think I can do this stuff, if they come along on my ideas, like those guys are admins of a Slack channel that I built. Again, community building. I built the Slack channel because I want other threat hunters to talk to other threat hunters. And now there's 300 people in it, and they all talk. That makes me feel awesome. But if they believe I can do that, that I can build that, and anything that I want to do, I want to switch to red teaming. I asked Ryan any question I want on red teaming, and he's like, yeah, man, go do that. Why would I disrespect them by thinking I can't, if they believe, I mean, what am I saying, they're wrong? That's a dick move. I'm not going to do that anymore. And that really turned it around for me. Like, I'm disrespecting them if I don't believe in myself. Anyway, that's my little spiel on imposter syndrome. Maybe it rings true with some of you, maybe it doesn't. Other than that, how do you get rid of it? You create. You write. Even if you think that something has been written about 3 billion times before, hasn't been written about from your perspective, and even if one other person reads it, that's exponentially worth it. Like, write it down. Start a blog. Blogs are free. Spin it up on GitHub. Make your own GitHub. Write all the stuff that you want to get out and explain to the world. And the more you do that, the more you're going to notice you don't really feel as cynical about your own skill sets anymore. I'm trying to think how many things I have left in here. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. One of my favorite movies. We're getting off the old imposter syndrome. Even when you are feeling good, and then you have to come back to reality, come back to the corporate world. There is has anybody seen the movie Up in the Air with George Clooney? One of my favorite movies ever. If you haven't, the premise is that he works for a company that fires other companies' employees for them. It's kind of where I get into talking to the management end of the crowd now. I love the one line in the beginning of the movie. That says, this is Bob. Bob hires me to fire his employees because Bob's too much of a pussy to do it himself. That's not always the case. I mean, I don't want to like shit on everybody all at once, but it happens, right? And it's happened to me enough times where maybe this is one of those slides where you can take a picture of if you're going through it now or maybe later. There are ways to deal with this. You're not going to see it coming most of the time, unless you're just a really shitty employee and like, yeah, probably a long time coming. But most of the times you're not going to see it. And how do you deal with something you don't see coming? I got let go of a job 2 weeks before my kid was born. Standing on a train platform, because I took the wrong fucking train too. That was awesome. With a box of stuff. Like, it's everything you see in every shitty, like, rom-com Lifetime movie. What am I going to do? Jump in front of a train? Like, that shit happens. How do you deal with that? So, Riptide. I made a little bit of a list, right? If you find yourself in this position. My little riff tips. Your grief is real. It is absolutely real. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Acceptance, denial, rejection. I think I went through all of them on the train ride home. Like, I was emailing the bosses going, why? Take me back. Like, that shit's humbling, right? So let yourself feel that. What's next? Get a routine. Feel sorry for yourself for about 10 minutes. Then get some sleep and get up the next day and start your new routine. Looking for a job is now your job, right? And even when you're done passing out resumes and you are done talking to people for the day, I was at Mandiant a second time. I actually went back. And because I was looking for a new gig, and they're like, hey, we have a position open. We're sorry about the last time. Would you think you'd come back? I'm like, yeah, let's roll the dice again. And then a year later, I got riffed again. I mean, twice. But at that point, I'd built my network around the community is everything idea. And I had the routine. I had interviews all day, every day. It was a very great position to be in. I was very lucky to be in that position. But at the end of the day, I was just texting with a buddy of mine who's going through this same thing. When the world is quiet and it's nighttime and your kids are asleep, your spouses are asleep, and you're just alone with your thoughts, oh, that sucks. Even just for a split second, if you have that second of doubt, that can cascade, man. Be ready for that. Have a routine ready. Be ready for those moments. Learn something new every day. That's the first thing that Jen Ayers ever told me. Even she said, even if we don't hire you, and I laughed at her. I was like, of course you're gonna hire me. Duh. Learn something new every day, and I did every single day from that day until now. I learned something new, and I try to make sure I read something. If you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. The hacker community, the InfoSec community has such a big presence on Twitter. It is unreal. Follow me, ask me for suggestions. I have a lot of really great people that I learn a lot from. You probably didn't make this happen. It's hard not to take this personally, right? As I said before, we're so wrapped up in this, in who we are as people, what we take pride in. You probably didn't make it happen. It's somebody with a spreadsheet somewhere. Take your beatings. Even if you get an interview and you realize, oh, I am so underqualified for this, take that beating. That is practice. Those are reps, right? I recently tried to skateboard again. I'm 36 years old and very fat. I haven't skateboarded since I was like 19. No, I broke my phone when I did it. That balance just isn't there anymore, man. Like, it's a sturdy board too. Like, that shit could hold an elephant, and I'm just like, nope, done. Cause I hadn't done it in forever. It's the same exact thing, man. If you've had a gig for a while and you're looking for something new because you're miserable or you need to find a new one, that takes reps. So even if you get your ass kicked the first few times, just picture me falling my fat ass off of a skateboard, feel better about yourselves, and then keep going. Take those beatings. Twist the release valve. That routine should include something that has nothing to do with anything that we do that has a paycheck attached to it, right? Just sit outside. I recently bought a new house. My wife, it's like our dream house. We love it. But I work remotely, so I stay in like a certain section of the house all the time. And I never have cause to be outside at night. Like, we have a very nice porch, backyard. So I did it the other night. Holy shit. Talk about taking stock of your things. Even a little bit out of your comfort zone to twist that release valve. Get out of that situation. That's going to work wonders. Yeah, one more on here. Mostly for management. Well, I mean, it's for all of us, because, like, I get very irritable, too, when this stuff happens. Yes, sir. What's my excuse? I don't have one. I meant to qualify that. Mostly for all of us except me. I'm a dick all the time. This is heady stuff. This is heavy. One of my last managers, last time I was at Mandiant. Again, I don't mean to cast it. They're a great company. I'm using them just as the example. I don't want a flood of people I used to work with going, oh, what the fuck, man? It's just how the business worked. And so it was a manager one above my direct one. And, directly in my chain. It's been 3 years and I still haven't heard from her. I don't even know if she knows I'm gone. That's kind of a dick move. Be aware what your employees are going through. Keep the humanity about it. I think we lose that a lot because of procedure, because of HR and legal, and I get that to an extent. But there's also a way to be a human about it. And if you're going through it yourselves, just realize you're responsible for a lot of other people, maybe. Or you're responsible for how other people feel around you. So take care of yourself to take care of them. Where are we at now? Write your own list. You ever have to go through this? Do what I just did. What happened to you? How did you feel? How did you go through it, right? Because this is how this industry is. It can be absolutely savage. And I've told you about my fails. I've told you how I tend to just keep falling forward because I have a lot of really great people around me. But write your own list. Your experience is not going to be mine, right? I'm a 36-year-old white guy. Like, that's completely different than other people. It could be different for another 36-year-old white guy. I don't have the same considerations. My journey is different than each and every one of yours. So write your own list. I just wanted to get one dig at recruiters in here. Oh, some of these people are such dicks. This is one of the slides that really falls into, this is kind of what we don't talk about because we're not allowed to. God forbid I burn myself the next time. I love this. I found this on Twitter the other day, which is what really made this slide. Another fail, kind of a fail story, not so much on my part, but on the recruiter's part. There's a recruiter in the industry. I'm not going to name him because, like, that doesn't do any good. But, relatively well-known recruiter for a relatively well-known company when I was just coming up, and I'm going to remember this forever. I'm going to remember him forever. And I'm going to tell people about him forever. I had interviewed with a certain company just coming up in my career, and the first one went really well, and it was great, and he was like, I'm going to schedule a second one. I said, all right, that's great. But in the meantime, I'm watching out for myself. I had gotten an offer that I really liked. I had gotten an offer that I was going to accept. And I was like, all right, well, there's no need to like waste this company's time, right? That was genuinely my sentiment about it. So I called and I said, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I don't want to waste your all's time. I found a really great position, but thank you so much, right? But I'm not going to go forward with your company. Fast forward to when the Mandiant thing first happened. I was like, oh, I got through a first round with them. Let me go talk to them. And his exact words were, well, you're probably never going to get hired here. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, you turned down our second interview offer, so, nobody's going to want to have you here now. Fuck you. That's one of the things that will stick with me no matter how. So I'm a senior manager now. It's my first time, and that's just weird. And if I go any higher or if I go other levels, I will always remember that conversation with that guy. Like you're going to throw away potential talent. I'm not saying I'm all that talented, but you're going to throw away somebody and make their lives harder and be a dick about it. Like say, oh, well, what are you, were we dating? I don't know. That's one of those stories I always want to tell on tape. Because, don't be that guy, right? Like, don't hold grudges. Don't be vindictive. I don't really hold grudges against any of the people that I've talked about so far because it's all happened for a reason. So yeah, I'm actually getting towards the end of my thing now. This is where I'm at now, stage 3, and I hope you all get here, where I believe in the power of individuals and teams and friends and community and network. So you are your own brand, right? One of the best pieces of advice that I want to leave you with that I ever got from anybody else is your current gig, wherever you are, they are your temporary client. It's a symbiotic relationship, and it's beneficial until it's not. When it's not, look elsewhere, right? Build your own brand, build your network, build your community, build your skill sets, and don't get yourself so wrapped up and set yourself up for it. We're all going to fall. There's a great quote in The West Wing. Anybody watch The West Wing? Cool. There's a really great quote, one of the episodes, and they're quoting some movie. I think it's called The Lion in Winter or whatever. Guys are in jail. They're getting ready to be executed. And he tells the one guy to stop crying and be a man. And the other guy says, well, they're like, well, when you're falling, like, what does it matter how a man falls down? That's what the quote is. I'm trying to fucking think about it. What does it matter how a man falls down? And he responds, when the fall is all that's left, it matters a great deal. So how you fall matters. I've gone back, I've gone forward a couple of times, and I hope my stories here and my personal journey forward has maybe helped some of you in this to kind of say, hey, this is probably not all that bad. In the blurb, I don't even know if it's there, but like, I promised like a recipe for success, but like, I kind of lied. That was just me trying to get in. You got SE'd. No, I've already kind of told you. So my mom used to make this stuff, and in hindsight, it's pretty gross. It's called slop. S-L-O-P, slop. And it's really just, mom had shit left over and needs to feed the kids. And it was like rice and beef and corn and like some other stuff, right? What's that? That's not, there was no, they ain't no andouille in that, boy. Shit. Talk to me about gumbo. I lived in Louisiana twice. Twice for like 2 years cumulatively, like I'm an expert. But the only ingredient, this sounds cliche as shit, but it just came to me. It's going to be on tape now. The only ingredient in this recipe is literally yourself. You're the one that can put everything else in. You stir the pot. You decide how hot it gets. You decide if you let it cool off for a little bit. You decide if it completely sucks because you screwed it up, and then you start again and you make something fresh. Right? That's the only recipe you need for this. Failure is not the end. It's all in how you deal with it. How you fall matters a great deal. So that's how to get a hold of me. If you enjoyed this, if you have questions, if you have your own stories, if you just want to shoot the shit, I'm here until, Saturday morning. So thank you to GrrCon, and thank you guys for sitting through this.